At some point, everyone dreams of striking it rich, as money is a universal motivator. With this in mind, Kong seizes an unexpected opportunity, seeing it as the perfect moment to start his anime-style redemption arc. Upon arriving at the old village to begin his mission, he's greeted by a surprising sight: a stunning woman welcoming him home. To his shock, he discovers that the woman is actually his aunt, Ji. Despite the awkward revelation, Kong explains that he plans to stay at his grandfather's house since he's currently homeless, assuring her that he'll keep a low profile until he's back on his feet. Later, Kong learns that he is about 20 years younger than his uncle, making her closer to his own age. He also finds out that his uncle no longer lives in the house, but he still stays there occasionally, meaning the two will be sharing the space. He shows him to his room, and as Kong unpacks, she peeks in to let him know she'll cook dinner later, showing her kindness. After settling in, Kong flops onto the floor, taking a deep breath and talking to himself about how he's never been on a date, blaming it on being too busy chasing money, an excuse he realizes is all too common. Eventually, he musters some energy and decides to make himself useful by checking out the family store, which he hasn't visited in decades. When he arrives, he spots his grandmother doing some heavy lifting, though something about her labored breath seems a bit off. Regardless, she joyfully turns to greet her not-so-little boy, thrilled to see him after so long as they talk. Kong notices a peculiar sign that reads "Hole Closed," staring at it with suspicion. His grandmother asks why he's there, and Kong explains that he'll be working at the store from now on. Despite his lingering focus on that suspicious sign, the two catch up, chatting about how things haven't changed around here. Kong finally steps up to help, moving boxes around the store. However, like all grandmothers, she insists on doing most of the work herself, urging him to take it easy. After spending more time on the task than he anticipated, Kong finishes and is left marveling at how his grandfather managed to handle this workload daily, let alone his grandmother, even now. Eventually, they sit down to rest, and Kong's grandmother chuckles at him, asking if he thinks he's ready to take on the family mantle. But of course, Grandma agrees, as he's a failure everywhere else. The mood lightens as they begin planning his role in the store. Just as Kong thinks he's about to step into his new responsibilities, his grandmother clarifies that she'll still be managing the shop. Kong sits there, confused, trying to get more details, but she cuts him off, instructing him to make sure he greets the village chief. A surprising revelation since the chief also happens to be a woman. Before Kong can process this, a sudden jingling noise interrupts their conversation, and the culprit is not Rudolph, the red-nosed reindeer. Instead, the store door swings open, and in storms a fiery, pink-haired girl, yelling at the old lady and demanding drinks. Kong's grandmother claps back, scolding her for drinking too much, while Kong stays frozen in his seat, somewhat afraid of the girl. Things take a strange turn when the girl notices Kong, freaking out at the presence of a guy in the room as though it's the rarest occurrence in the world. It's almost as if she's never encountered someone of the opposite gender before. Trying to diffuse the awkward tension, Kong calmly introduces himself as the store's new worker. Hearing his voice seems to calm her down instantly, as if the fiery beast was extinguished by the sole presence of Kong. Nonetheless, Kong's grandmother finishes packing up 3 bottles of the girl's favorite drink and hands them over. While doing so, she casually spills some personal details about the girl, revealing her name is Ji, and she works the night shift at a nearby factory while also raising a child on her own. Embarrassed by this sudden revelation of her private life, Ji runs off flustered, but not before Kong catches a glimpse of her rice cakes due to some short shorts. After Ji disappears into the distance, Kong learns why she was so startled to see him. It turns out there are literally no other men in the entire village. Stunned by this revelation, Kong sits with his mouth agape, unable to process it. A flashback follows as Kong's grandmother recounts the history of the village. During a war, the women fled to this remote area, seeking a safe haven to survive and rebuild. They established the village as their sanctuary. However, even after the war ended, an unusual phenomenon occurred. Every child born in the village was a girl. This pattern persisted, and despite multiple attempts to bring men into the village, none of these efforts succeeded in the long run. Over time, the population became entirely female, leading to the village being unofficially renamed No Men because, quite literally, there were no men to be found. Back in the present, Kong finally pieces things together. The only men in the entire village come from his own family lineage. This realization helps him understand why the store primarily sells female-oriented products. Later that evening, everyone gathers back at home, including Kong's uncle, who has decided to take a break from city life and stay in the village for a while. During dinner, his uncle asks if Kong visited the store that day. Kong confirms, casually mentioning that the job doesn't seem too difficult. The conversation takes a turn when his uncle jokingly asks if Kong's girlfriend would have an issue with him staying in the village long term. Kong awkwardly admits he's single, to which his uncle grins and reassures him not to worry, pointing out the abundance of women in the village. Kong laughs nervously, aware of his 30 years of inexperience when it comes to relationships. As the conversation progresses, it finally dawns on him how his uncle was able to land such a bombshell, since he literally was the only choice for everyone living in the village. With this newfound understanding, Kong retires to his room for the night, hoping to get some rest. However, just as he's about to drift off, he hears footsteps approaching his door, followed by 2 quick knocks. A faint woman's voice asks if he's still awake, startling Kong. He opens his eyes and turns toward the door to see who it is. The voice at the door is revealed to be Jie, who mysteriously asks Kong how he's finding life in the village. Her gaze lingers through the door, giving the interaction a slightly unsettling vibe. Jie's tone grows oddly curious as she questions whether Kong can handle the responsibility of running the family store. Her demeanor begins to feel a bit suspicious as she learns that Kong genuinely wants to take on the family mantle. Leaning closer, she whispers with an almost eerie intensity, "Do you really mean it?" Afterwards, right before she says goodnight, she slaps her hand on the door and proceeds to slowly drag it down the see-through window. After flopping back into bed, Kong tries to brush off Jie's strange behavior from the night before, convincing himself it's nothing to worry about. The next morning, Kong wakes up early, ready to make a productive start. He heads to the store but finds the same sign still hanging that reads "Hole Closed." Confused but eager to contribute, he goes to find his grandmother for guidance on what tasks to tackle for the day. To his surprise, his grandmother proudly announces, "Starting today, you will be the entire whole of the store." Kong stares at her, baffled by the odd phrasing, wondering why she's comparing him to a donut hole. However, still confused by his grandmother's cryptic statement, Kong watches as she drags him to a hidden section of the store he's never noticed before. She unlocks the concealed area and gestures for him to go inside. Stepping in, Kong discovers a small room with a single vent and a mysterious circular hole beneath it. His curiosity deepens when he spots a dusty old manual written by his grandfather. Nervously, he begins skimming through its pages, trying to make sense of what's going on. Meanwhile, outside, his grandmother flips the store sign, replacing the "Hole Closed" notice with a fresh one that reads "Hole Open." The story continues with the grandma looking into the store after flipping over a sign that says the hole is closed. Meanwhile, Kong reads the book left behind by his grandfather, where we discover that the secret room he's in was actually built for a special ritual. Since his family was the only one living in the town, his grandpa notes that the entire book leaves behind a legacy for his future successor. It's then revealed that the village, also known as No Men Village, needs a man to help balance the yin and yang energy through the secret room. At this very moment, Kong realizes he has struck a gold mine, as it seems the entire village will soon be striking his gold rocks. Now, Kong knows the exact purpose of the mysterious hole. The town needs one heroic man to provide energy to everyone else. However, Kong's nerves get the better of him as he realizes the weight of being the so-called chosen one. The pressure overwhelms him, especially since he's never even been on a date, despite now being 30 years old. As he panics about the bizarre situation he's found himself in, a creaking sound from the door opposite the secret room grabs his attention. Freaking out with nothing else to do, Kong instinctively peers through the vent to see who's approaching. His heart starts pounding wildly, much like someone who just ate too many beans and finds themselves miles away from a bathroom. Through the vent, it's revealed that the fiery, pink-haired girl from the previous day, Ji-hee, is the first in line. The situation grows even stranger as Kong notices that the secret room resembles a confessional booth, complete with a small waist-height hole in the wall. The implications send his mind into overdrive. At this tense moment, a timely flashback interrupts Kong's thoughts. He remembers a peaceful day spent with his grandfather, sharing popsicles under the summer sun. Young Kong had asked why his grandfather chose to stay in this rural village instead of moving to the city with everyone else. The old man, flustered but laughing, had simply replied that he could never leave the village since he loved to hear too much. Back to the present, Kong finally realizes what that old man meant, as he was truly the sole source of bananas for the entire village. Nonetheless, the pink-haired girl seemingly appears familiar with the ritual, so she's already getting down to business, even though Kong has no idea what to do. As the room heats up due to the pink-haired girl preparing to water Kong's banana plantation, she starts asking him when he plans to reveal the banana tree. With Kong still unable to open his mouth to say anything, his racing heartbeat says it all. He begins questioning his life, wondering if everything happening is even real. Eventually, the show gets on the road. Kong's banana tree plantation accidentally erupts into its semi-form, unable to handle the intensity of the moment. Unfortunately for Kong, the banana plantation remains stuck inside its greenhouse, as he forgot to open the doors to let the banana trees breathe. The girl, confused and wondering what on earth is going on, presses on with her mission. She grabs the door, keeping the banana plantation inside the greenhouse, causing even more blood to rush through Kong's veins. But since Kong is a total noob, he can't handle even the slightest physical contact. Overwhelmed by the excitement in the air, he accidentally collapses onto the floor. As he lies there, Kong starts reflecting on his life, unable to believe he spent 30 years trying to make money and, throughout it all, never once got into a relationship. However, this time, it's as if the world decided to take all of Kong's bad luck and finally give him a break, probably feeling bad for the loser. It seems it's time to reward him for all the failures he's endured throughout his life. Regardless of the golden opportunity now in front of him, Kong decides that today is the day he will finally man up. Determined, Kong gets back on his feet, nervously gulping as he prepares himself. He then walks back to the vent, ready for action. Hyping himself up, he tells himself that he's a proud subscriber and a baka. This time, the pink-haired beast is even more surprised than before. She looks as if she's ready to water the soil of the banana plantation with some sprinklers. As such, she begins her attack on the secret hole, finally relieved that there's a man ready to balance the yin and yang energies within the village once again. With Pinky going all in without hesitation, our boy Kong is left scrambling to hold his defenses the best he can. But honestly, it's like one of those try not to make a sound challenges, basically impossible. Unfortunately for Kong, this is literally his first attempt at defending the goal, and he accidentally explodes in just a couple of seconds. However, Pinky is an absolute savage. She manages to drink the entire Slurpee of Kong without spilling a single drop on the floor, essentially cosplaying as a love vampire. Even Kong is left in awe, astonished by Pinky's flawless technique and the way she downs everything in one gulp. The tables quickly turn as the girl doesn't leave the scene. Instead, she decides to raise the difficulty level from easy to normal, preparing for the next round. This time, Kong's banana plantation miraculously recovers instantly, bouncing back to full growth form. To everyone's surprise, it appears even more mature than before. And so, the rest is history. The two take a scenic ride over a waterfall, with the atmosphere oozing romance. Meanwhile, the grandma knew exactly what was happening the entire time. As the story unfolds, it's revealed that the grandma is more than just a bystander. She's a real G. When Pinky returns to report that the job is complete, it's as if the grandma is some kind of mafia boss. She even asks Pinky for details, but Pinky gets flustered and storms off, utterly mad that the grandma had the audacity to pry. Nevertheless, as Pinky runs off, the grandma waves goodbye like a true top G, casually reminding her to come back anytime. That's all for today, guys. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to leave a like and share your thoughts in the comments. And please hit that subscribe button. It really helps keep us motivated to bring you more exciting manhwa content. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.